Thank you, John, and hello, everyone. My name is Zoe Tabry, and I'm an editor at the Economist Intelligence Unit, which is the business research arm of the Economist Group. We're now going to move on to our session about transport and mobility, and I'd like to invite those from the panel who are ready to please join me on the stage. Just while they do so, to give us a bit of context, rising urbanization rates mean that an increasing number of citizens, but also businesses, are going to rely on infrastructure as a means to get to work, to enjoy their free time, but also to transport goods. So with that in mind, how are cities addressing this challenge, and what can we learn from their experience? To our panel, please do join me on the stage. I just wanted to remind all of you to please feel free to tweet. We've got a hashtag which is EECities. I believe just one of our events in the past has ever trended, and that was because the hashtag was hijacked by protesters outside of our energy event. So please feel free to tweet. I'm joined today by a very esteemed panel. Just to my right, Michael Münter, who's head of the Mayor's Office for Policy Planning at the City of Stuttgart. Before this role, Dr. Münter also served in senior positions at the State Ministry of Baden-Württemberg and at the German Bundestag. Just to his right, we have Angelike Winkler, who's Deputy Head of Department for Urban Planning and Transport Planning at the City of Vienna, and she is also the Head of Division for Mobility Strategies. Hartmut Schick, who has been Head of Daimler Buses and Chief Executive Officer of Evo Bus since 2009. To his right, Marc Mimram, who's the founding director of Marc Mimram Architects and Engineers, a Paris-based consultancy who design workplace, education, infrastructure, and sports projects around the world. And finally, but by no means least, Jerry Sanders, who's CEO and chairman of skyTran, a NASA SpaceX company. He's also the founder of San Francisco Science, a story technology group, and of the Triana Group, a technology accelerator. Now, we don't have very much time left, and I don't want to eat into too much of your coffee break, so I hope my fellow panelists will forgive me for skipping straight to the discussion, because I do think that's the most interesting part of these sessions. And the first question I'd like to throw at you really is, which area of transport you feel, in the area you are based, will get the most pressure in the years to come? Is it roads, is it rail, is it other areas? Michael, if you could get us started.
That's not very simple to answer for a city like Stuttgart with only 600,000 inhabitants. It's not like London or other cities. But I think you can't, in the city of Stuttgart, you can't figure out one of these areas. I think it's not so much on the train side. It's a little bit on the road side, but it's much more on the pedestrian area side and on the cycling side. And but it's not one point where you can see this is the one area which has to be the most investment.
Angelike, you represent the city of Vienna. What would you say is most significant for you in terms of challenges?
The city of Vienna is a city with 1.8 million. We are growing very fast. And that we have a big pressure on our transport systems, especially in the public transport system. And there we spend much money the next 10, 15, 20 years. And we had a big discussion where we should spend this big money. And that was the decision last June that we built a new metro line. We had a new railway station. But I think the most focus should be on the pedestrians and the cyclists, because 1% of the models share more for bicyclists or pedestrians is so cheap, and 1% of more of the public transport system is very, very expensive. And so I think it's for a lively city, for a vivid city, it's much more important to invest in vivid neighborhoods.
And perhaps more a question for Hartmut, Mark, and Jerry. I wanted to ask you what you think will be the most distinctive future of transport in the future. Is it going to be, are we going to see driverless cars becoming commonplace? Is it going to be more empowered consumers? Mark, you, as an architect, you, I imagine, have a very forward-looking approach. Perhaps you'd like to get us started.
What struck me is that we are seeing the city or the transportation as divided items, like rails and roads And we were speaking before about water and storage and all that. I think now the future will be shared cities, shared places, shared space. Now what we're working mainly on the fact that infrastructure is usually global. It's taking you from one point to the other, but globally is supposed to be positive, locally is supposed to be negative, because the train is in front of your window, you don't want it. The car is passing in front of your window, you don't want it. So what we're trying to do is to mix them together and trying to develop the public space. For example, we are doing bridges that are inhabited. We are doing under roads that can be markets. For example, we did a project in Rabat in Morocco where the bridge is over the road, not on the road, over the road, so that underneath you can have a market. So how can we develop, I'm coming back to your question, what is the future? The future is shared space, is shared mobility, is shared generosity of the city. You were speaking about pedestrians. Yes, but we are, in 1 minute we are pedestrian, the minute after we are on a cycle, and the minute after we have a car. Don't say that to anybody, but we have a car. And then after that we are taking a train. So we are doing all these things together. What I think is that in Paris mainly we have that they are dividing the space. We have to put the space together and to find a way we can share it, more complexity.
Jerry Hartmut, would you agree, is the future of transport to be shared effectively between citizens?
Well, I think, unfortunately, if the past is prologue, and unless we break the paradigm, and I would have liked the panel that was here before us to have addressed that, unless we break the political paradigm of big companies giving big donations to politicians who then rig the rules in favor of the big companies to get more and more expensive transportation boondoggles, we're going to get more of these big systems that ultimately don't serve the public. And I just picked up this brochure outside about Stuttgart. I didn't know anything about Stuttgart, but I wasn't surprised to read that there are half a million people employed in the city of Stuttgart, 55% live outside the city, and 60% travel to work by car alone. And I ask you, why do people travel in their car on their own, knowing that they're going to be stuck in traffic? And that's because our public transportation solutions are simply terrible. And so people prefer to be stuck in their car as opposed to be stuck in a bus or a train or some other mode of public transportation. skyTran, the NASA Space Act company that I'm chairman of, has innovative transportation solutions. Where do we run into problems? When we approach the city fathers and mothers and we tell them about our innovative solutions, and they turn us to old rules and regulations that are suitable to the 19th century. I'll give you one quick example. Public transportation in many cities is defined by the number of people capable of entering the vehicle, not by the number of people that the system can move per hour. In order to change that rule or regulation, which really has no bearing on a good public transportation system, it can take years of bureaucratic haggling and wrangling. So we need within each city, if you will, a regulation czar to break down these old rules and regulations so we can get new, innovative transportation.
Thank you. Hartmut, what do you think?
Well, as I'm coming from a silo, I must promote bus, obviously. But what I think a very interesting development is bus rapid transit, where you have separate lanes for buses, especially in countries like Brazil. I visited 2 weeks ago Rio, where they really have a lot of lanes. It's fast implementation. It's much less investment than with metro or other means. And in the end, the cost of operations is also very low. And if you then take buses, bigger buses, which have, compared to other transport means, better CO2 consumption per passenger, so these systems are very good. And you can also do it in smaller cities, like in Europe. The last system was implemented in Strasbourg. So if there's a will to do it, then this is possible. And you asked about technology. We have already demonstrators with autonomous driving. This will be one development, and obviously also electric vehicles will be in the future. The problem today is that the technology is not yet there, and the second thing that it's economically not feasible in the moment because the components are so expensive. So in the next generation, we have to find a way where we deliver the right technology, but also to a price that cities can afford it.
Well, and that leads us nicely on to our next point, which is technology. I think, innovations such as mobile technologies, open transport data are hugely changing the way people not only use transport, but also relate to it. I was coming across a survey recently that was saying that up to 30% of congestion or traffic caused in a city can be because of people just searching for a parking spot. So on technology, other than technology embedded in vehicles, and Michael, I know we had discussed e-mobility and e-bikes, I guess what potential do you see for technologies to change how people use and relate to transport? So I'm thinking, for instance, of public transport, of way they use their own cars. What potential do you see for technology, Michael?
I'm not an expert on technologies and cars. This is more Hartmut's thing. But for a city, for example, like Stuttgart, the electromobility is a very good thing, and we are trying very, very hard to be the front runner in Germany on that thing. So Daimler has provided the city with over 500 fully electric cars, and it's a huge success in the city. Nevertheless, Daimler is not making money with it at the moment. But we are currently having a pilot project in Stuttgart regarding the whole of Germany, where we try to make access to public transport in all its aspects most easily. It is called the Stuttgart Service Card, and we are trying to have an app and website and in fact at least a kind of a check card where you can use all different aspects of public transport. And you have real-time information on the time scale your travel will last. This is kind. Jerry said people are most likely to stuck in their own car because it's the public transport is so terrible. We are trying to make it most easy for people to see when they start their travel at home or before they start their travel at home. Is it good today to use the car, or is it better to go with a caller bike, with a rent bike to the next station, and so on, so that you can move and switch every day on the way which is most suitable for you. And we try on that way to make it most easily to become people more from individual or motorcycling to using public transport.
No, that's great. And I think the fact is, the technology exists. It's existed for over a decade. The problem is we're not using that technology. In fact, we move slower today as a society than we did in 1950. It takes longer today to get from one place to the other in the urban-suburban environment than it took in 1950. That's absurd. Look at the advances we've made in every field of our lives: telecommunications, medicine, space. Everything except transportation, where we're going backward. We're going backward because there are more and more cars on the road. There's more and more traffic. People hate traffic. The surface area is full. Bus rapid transit is a great idea. However, there's just so much place and so many lanes you can put on the same road. And we therefore have to acknowledge, in my opinion, that we either go above ground in some new innovative way, as does SkyTran, or we go below ground. If we go below ground, I submit to you the last mile of the New York subway, $2 billion and 10 years of construction. So we have to find better ways. There are better ways. Technologies exist out there. The bottleneck is our political system and the transportation industrial complex that blocks innovation. And we need, if you will, far-seeing politicians, far-seeing regional governments to understand that public transportation no longer be funded by the public trough. These new technologies are cheap, they're innovative. Just compare the old mainframe computer to your iPhone, and you can see that there's no reason to spend all of these billions of dollars on transportation when the new systems could be privately funded, be more efficient, be more effective, make everyone happy. In order to do that, we really need to break the paradigm.
Angelica?
Yes, I say the speed is not the most important topic in the city because you don't need to go for shopping for one pair of shoes through the whole of the city. So I say it's most important to make, like you said, the shared space and to make the neighborhoods strong, the neighborhoods, and go by foot and by bicycle. And the second topic is because of the e-mobility, the city of Vienna, Austria is not an automotive country, so we do not have our own car production. And we say that the electric vehicles need the same space than the normal vehicles. So for us, there is no solution for the topics of the car driving in the city. So we don't have any advantage for the electric cars.
And technology is obviously one. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I was wondering that there may be two limits about technology that we have to look after. The first one is to who is that technology? The technology has to be to everyone because we are speaking about public space, and the public space is a space that everybody shares. It's not like a building or the representation of the society today, the place of, let's say, I will use a special word, the place of democracy is public space. So this space has to be shared by everybody. So the technology has to be a technology for everyone. That's the first thing. And not a special technology that some of them can use. So we are...
Everyone can use the technology.
No, but you need... Yeah, it's a matter of will and a matter of money also, and a matter of knowledge. So we need to be aware of that. The second thing is that the public transportation system, the infrastructure, has to be linked with the city, and not with itself only. It has to be linked with the place it has been developed. By the past, we had buildings that were the same all over the world, international style. Now we are speaking about international style infrastructure. The infrastructure we are drawing somewhere has to be drawn for that place. So this is another limit of the technology, how the technology can become local, specific. So those are two limits, not limits, but 2 points that we have to be aware of.
Yes, but with all due respect, you're not familiar with all of these new technologies. Otherwise, you would not say that they're more expensive. Compare what your iPhone can do today to what a computer could do 10 years ago. Look at this space landing that the European Space Agency did yesterday with technology that's 10 years old today. Every kid carries that in his pocket for 200 bucks. So the technology is cheap. And also, as to the point regarding Vienna and whether one needs to move quickly or not, I think we have to acknowledge and understand our cities today are mega cities. San Francisco to San Jose, where I come from, is one big city. It's not San Francisco, Palo Alto, Mountain View. It's today one big city. And so to say that we don't have to move quickly within that urban environment is simply a myth. It is unconscionable that the most productive people on the planet in terms of gross national product spend 4 to 5 hours a day each day in their car. And think about the developing world. Think about our obligation to China, to India, to the Philippines, to Malaysia, where people literally spend hours, 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours a day, and yet they have gross national product that approaches 8, 9, 10%. Imagine what their gross national product would be. Imagine what the quality of life would be for all those people if they weren't wasting all that time in traffic.
I've got a couple more questions, but before I ask those, do we have any questions from the audience? Please just raise your hand if you do. I don't think we do for now. One other area I wanted to cover was obviously not just technology, but also sustainability, with transport being one of the main contributors to the rise in carbon emissions. And we've discussed, of course, rail, roads, not so much air traffic at the moment. So, I mean, with that in mind, which innovations do you think hold the biggest potential for the area of transport which you're responsible for to make transport more sustainable? And do you think that consumers are ready to accept those innovations?
Well, perhaps if I could talk about products, I think train, metro will further develop, will get more efficient. On the traditional engine side, I said we introduced Euro 6, so this is clean. The air that's coming out is cleaner than the air that's going into the engine. But there will, worldwide, is CO2 legislation, so the engines will further improve, obviously. And with predictive driving, it will even improve. I think the next step in the cities will be, as I mentioned, battery buses. So there's a lot of technologies, but obviously always, and I have to say this as an industry representative, all these new technology, there's a lot of cost behind it, and the entire system for transport, the costs go up. This will be with battery buses. If there's a CO2 legislation in Europe in 2020, we can do it technically. This is no problem, but costs will go up for the entire system.
I think this is a splendid example of how we're stuck in old paradigms. Innovation in transportation is taking an old bus and putting an electric engine in it. That's not innovation, folks. That's an upgrade. Innovation, can we get the skyTran slide up here, please? Innovation is a vehicle that can travel above the traffic using 1/3 the energy of a Prius at $4 million a kilometer as opposed to 70 or 100 million a kilometer for light rail. That's innovation, folks.
Well, I agree that's innovation, but if you go to Rio, who has the money to do this?
This is 1/10 the cost of your BRT and your light rail. I don't know why you say no. This is fact. It's not fiction. You can check this out.
I guess, Mark, as an architect, how do you think that the design of infrastructure, of transport infrastructure, can help make it more sustainable?
We have to take care of that, because as we are working, for example, I was yesterday in China. We are doing a lot of bridges in China, and what we see is that they understood that the infrastructure is a way of making a better city for themselves. They begin with that because they are transforming the cities. The city in Tianjin where we are working is a city of 10 million people. It will be 20 million when it will be linked with Binhai, and it will be 30 million when it will be linked with Tianjin. So those are huge cities. So how can we make them better? And for example, we are working in an ecological city, Sino-Singapore City, where we are trying to develop infrastructures that are linked, I'm sorry to tell you that, but that are linked to the place. How can we develop a city for the city and not a city in an abstract way? We need the modes of transportation that are linked with the development of the city in that place. Do you have a mountain? Do you have a river? How do you connect with the sky, with the ground? This is the future of the ecological way to develop an infrastructure.
Do we have any questions from the audience before we move on to our final points? Don't be shy. I think one final aspect that's critical with transport is who is best placed to drive transport initiatives. We obviously have, both here on the stage and in the audience, a very good mix of policymakers, governments, businesses, and also consumer groups. On what the respective projects you have worked on, who do you think is best placed to drive these initiatives? Is it a mix of all of them? Would you argue for more devolution, as Mr. Ferguson from the city of Bristol has in terms of transport decisions?
Well, I think it depends really on the level regarding devolution, on the level or on the country in which you're working. In Germany, we don't have a devolution problem on the transport side. I think it's on the one hand, politics or administration can be a driver to innovation. On the other hand, there is, of course, a demand. For example, if you have a city like Freiburg in Baden-Württemberg, they are building now at the moment a kind of bicycle tracks where you can cross the city without any crossroad. That doesn't mean that there is no car crossing your road, but that the bicycles are going by bridge or by tunnel over the cars or the car crossroads. So, and this is something that came upon because many people there are driving bicycles. In other cities, I think in Vienna, for example, pedestrian areas are very much in favor. So because many people are walking there, and this is a city we are looking from Stuttgart to regarding pedestrian politics. We look into Copenhagen for bicycles. So this is dependent on various issues. If you have a strong administration or a strong political will, there can also be drivers from the politics or administration. There can also be drivers, as Jerry said, from the industries or from innovation. So if you have various actors in different prospects or different settings, yeah, you can go forward on one and the other hand. The one thing I would like to tip on is we shouldn't forget the people who are doing it, because Jerry, as you said, people are sit in their cars, stuck in traffic jams. Why do they do it? We are also asking this question in Stuttgart, but as we are hosting the headquarters of Porsche and Daimler, of course, people are paying about 50, 60, 70, 80,000 euros per car, and they say, well, I have bought the right to drive on the street whenever I want to. I have a very warm place, I have good music, and it's completely irrelevant how long it takes. It would be nice if
because public
quite
transportation takes as long. So if you're going to be stuck in public transportation, you're going to be stuck in your car, you'd rather be stuck in your car.
Yes.
That's why we need to change the paradigm. Look, I agree with everything you've said. The problem of transportation innovation is a political problem. It's not a technological problem. The technological solutions exist. Even Daimler has technological solutions, but we have to be willing to implement those. They're cheap, they're efficient, they integrate within the environment, but we have to break the political logjam that creates these old systems that cost a lot of money, put burdens on the taxpayer, and ultimately the taxpayer does not want to use them. That's why 60% of the people going into Stuttgart still use their car.
But we have in Paris, we are doing the new metro in Paris, what we call the Grand Paris Metro. And I agree with Jerry with that. They developed the project just on the idea that the old technology we should begin with the old technology. So it cost millions just to go underground on kilometers around Paris, because to connect, and we missed the opportunity to develop sky transportation or all different kind of transportation just because they wanted to be connected with the old system. And we missed the opportunity to develop a new cities. Now we are trying to develop, for example, structures, buildings over the underground system, so that we can develop the cities through the infrastructure. That's what we're trying to do.
Hartmut, for our final word.
Yeah, perhaps one thing beside government influence, I think if you look at the behavior of younger people, they don't use as much car anymore as they did it some 10 years ago. And they want just to go, and they don't want to own a car or something. They want to go from A to B, and they want to have choices. And I think with these new platforms, where we try to bring everything together, where you can go by train, by car sharing, I think younger people will bring competition into these perhaps traditional thinkings and traditional systems. And competition is always good, in my view.
Thanks, Hartmut. To our panel, thank you very much. I do wish we had been able to spend more time in the discussion, but please do use the upcoming coffee break as a means to engage further with our panelists.